Ahlan wa sahlan, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this special talkback with Lina Soualem, who is the director of There Algeria. Lina, it's wonderful to have you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be sharing with you.
Of course. Let me give you a proper introduction. So again, we're really happy to have Lina Soualem here, who's the director of the beautiful documentary There Algeria. So Lina is a French, Palestinian, Algerian filmmaker and actress born and based in Paris. After studying history and political science at La Sorbonne University, she started working in journalism and as a programmer in film festivals, looking to combine her interests for cinema and the study of contemporary Arab societies. Lina worked as a programmer for the International Human Rights Film Festival in Buenos Aires and the Palest In and Out Festival in Paris, among others. In 2019, Lina's debut feature documentary, There Algeria, received Best Doc in Progress Award at the Doc Corner in Cannes Film Festival. There Algeria premiered in Visions du Real International Film Festival in 2020. She is currently developing her second feature documentary and works as an author and assistant director on fiction, series, and documentary projects. So again, Lina, thank you so much for being here. Super happy to have you. And we're super honored as the Arab American National Museum's Arab Film Festival to have hosted your beautiful documentary. I want to just kind of, one of my questions I always like to ask is I really like to get behind the scenes and behind the reason of where this beautiful idea for the film came from. So if you could talk a little bit about the inspiration behind making this intimate documentary.
Thank you so much for the intro. It's a film that I started shooting when I learned by my father that my grandparents, Aisha and Mabrouk, who are both born in Algeria and both immigrated to France in the 50s from Algeria, were separating after 62 years of marriage. I actually grew up with an Algerian family that has always been very silent about their story of exile and their political link between Algeria and France. And I always asked myself many questions around this silence, but I never dared ask them directly because we were used to this silence. We grew up with this silence. And I realized much later in my late 20s that this silence was really an obstacle to my own development. And so when I learned that they were separating at age 80 something both, after 60 years of marriage, it was an electroshock because not only I realized, which I already knew, but much more strongly, that I didn't know anything about their story and the collective story of Algeria and France and the French colonization of Algeria by the French. But I also realized I didn't know anything about their intimate story, what they lived and how they lived as a couple and how they felt during their exile, how they felt when they moved to France, how their intimate story was combined to the collective story. So when they separated, all these questions like resurfaced kind of, and it became really vital at this moment for me to capture their memory, also because I feared at this same moment that they would disappear without passing on their story to me. So their separation was really a rupture, and I was fearing the ultimate rupture that would be their disappearing without passing on their story to me, and which would be for me an impossibility of knowing my own story.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lina. And I think so many of us, especially looking at our grandparents, we have those thoughts and we're like, oh, I don't know anything about, all I know is that, my grandparents had kids and then I came. So I really applaud you on, wanting to know more about that family history, but also like deeper than just, personal stories, but like the context, like you were saying about like moving from, Algeria to France and all that. So you've done what a lot of us should do, including myself. What was it like, when having those conversations with your grandparents? By the way, your Siti's laugh, your grandmother's laugh, is infectious. Like I laughed like along with her. But when you were asking those questions, how were your grandparents with those questions? We saw your grandmother like laugh like at not inappropriate, but just interesting times, right? Like, what was it like to kind of ask them those questions and get some of the information out?
For me, it was a process that evolved because I started the film really with a lot of questions, thinking that I will have concrete answers that will explain everything to me. And I quickly understood that I wouldn't have answers to everything. And I quickly understood that sometimes the silence was speaking for itself. But it took me a while to understand that because I wanted to break a silence and understand. And I realized that my grandmother or my grandfather sometimes couldn't formulate some of the answers that I was looking for because they never allowed themselves to think about these things. For my grandmother, the intimate questions were things that she couldn't even formulate to herself. So at a point, I also understood that some things would stay subtle, would stay silenced. But at least I would I was understanding more and more where this silence came from. And when I understood that this silence came from the pain, the suffering of the uprooting, it allowed me to listen to the silence and understand it and accept it in a different way. And I think everything was very natural because I was filming myself. I didn't have a team, so I was alone with the camera and the sound. Of course, it took a couple of days for my grandmother to get used to the camera, but very quickly it was just a conversation between me and her, and she was forgetting about the camera and talking to me directly. So it allowed me to really have this authentic also relationship between us. And everything like the audience sees in the film and discovers with me, I discovered it in real time. So everything is very spontaneous. Also because when I started the film, I didn't know if I was actually going to be able to do a film, and I was just asking the questions without really knowing how I would structure the film. So it was really spontaneous at first. And then little by little, I also changed my ways of asking questions when I realized that the silence could speak for itself. And also when I understood that my grandfather, for example, couldn't speak of certain things because of the trauma that he had and because of the fact that he closed himself in the silence for so long to survive, and so it was impossible for him like from one day to another to just speak and reveal himself. So I used other ways to make them speak and to reactivate their memories, which was showing them photos or bringing them to some places, to some places where the memory was living around them, so that we could understand things about them without them really formulating them. And that's also why I use some archival footage, for example, of the Algerian War of Independence, because they couldn't talk about it. I was asking questions, they wouldn't say anything. And for me, it was very weird because I knew this story as a student of history. I knew this story, but I didn't know how it affected my grandparents and their intimacy and how they lived it. And I couldn't understand why they wouldn't be able to talk about it. And when I understood that it was a question of trauma, I decided to bring them back to this story, to put them back in this collective history through the images, showing them and making them exist in these memories without forcing them to speak if they wouldn't feel comfortable to.
Beautiful. Thank you. Inshallah, every filmmaker has the sensitivity that you do when, because these are very, these can be very difficult issues to talk about, like you were mentioning, like the trauma. Like, may all filmmakers who do documentaries have the sensitivity that you did, because I think that's really important, is like, having the sensitivity to approach these different topics. And also, like, like you were mentioning earlier, it was just you and a camera and the sound and your family versus like a whole team, which can, whether it's family or just other subjects that you're not familiar with or related to, it can definitely change the dynamic of like the documentary. So like, I applaud you for these efforts and these sensitivities. Can you were talking a little bit about memory and kind of trying to jolt their memory while being aware of trauma, but one thing that I really loved at the very end of the film is with memory, you went back to, or you went to their village, and I think that was for the first time. Can you talk a little bit about it almost seems like it's full circle, but can you talk a little bit about like going to your family's village and experiencing it for the first time and what that was like for you?
Yeah, it's funny because it became one of the most impactful for me, impactful scene of the film when my grandfather sees the images of the village. But it wasn't planned at all because at first I didn't think of filming in Algeria. I really wanted to focus on their reality, which was the exile in France and the distance with the native land. And actually, the process of the filmmaking of the film led me to Algeria because I didn't find financing in Europe, in France at first. And I had to pitch the film in many platforms in the Arab world, then in Europe, and then eventually we found some support in France, but in the post production phase. So in the first phases of development, when I started shooting in France and I had some images and I was looking for finances, I pitched the film in Béjaïa in Algeria, and I won a residency in Algiers. And I spent 1 month in Algiers looking at the footage that I had filmed of my grandparents in this city in the center of France, Thiers. And I was looking at them in this medieval town and thinking they are always talking about this village that seems to be the source of the pain, the source of the memory, the source of transmission, the source of everything. And I was a couple of hours from the village, so I said, I need to go see this place. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I just need to like step foot on this land that was the first land they step foot in. And so I went to the village and I was really surprised because I discovered the snow, which I wasn't expecting, all over. The mountains that were very similar to the mountains of central France where they live. And I met some people of the family that started telling me anecdotes about them. And it was really shocking for me because when I arrived, the first thing that they told me, I met some nephews, like great nephews of my grandfather, and they told me, "Yeah, but Aisha and Mabruk, it seems like it's not going well between them." I'm like, "How do you know that?" And they told me, "Mabruk, he calls us your grandfather. He told us." So I realized that he had a link. He was keeping a connection, but he never talks about it. He never told us. He never transmitted that to us. He to completely closed himself in France. And so it allowed me to reconnect with my grandfather. So I had to go there and come back with the images to reconnect with him and understand the link that he had with Algeria. So it became a really important uh, narrative for the film, but it wasn't expected. So that I think it's also the what we call the magic of reality. When you do documentaries, sometimes you're surprised by what's going on in the reality, and it wasn't really planned. And I think it's also part of the process of the filmmaking of this film that it was really spontaneous, as it was a vital search for me. So I wasn't thinking of the object, like I knew that I wanted to transmit this memory and I wanted to make a film because I wanted to transmit this memory, but I wasn't sure how and what would be in the film at first. I just had this urge of capturing everything that could be said or shown, because I felt that these memories were disappearing, and if we wouldn't grab them, no one would go talk about these people, because they didn't talk about themselves. No one tried to understand what happened to them. So we're the only ones left that can hold this memory and bring it back to the collective memory, actually.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lina. Um, and very interesting that your grandfather Mabruk has had that connection but never mentioned it, and so interesting. So interesting how like the memory works and like what we choose to share and what we omit and what we don't even like acknowledge to others, but maybe even like ourselves. Very interesting. um I'm curious how both your family, especially like your grandparents, and also just audiences in general, have received the film. I'm it has to be interesting, I'm sure, for your grandparents to like see, like, they were obviously aware of what was going on, but like then to see it on the big screen and to see some of the emotional pieces, to see all that. So how have how's your family reacted to the film, and also just audiences in general?
Unfortunately, my grandfather hasn't been able to see the film because he passed away at the end of the shooting, which was in February 2020. I was in post production at this moment. I don't know if he would have seen the film because he didn't see the films of my father, so I don't know. But at least I could connect with him through this scene where I show him the images, because in this scene I'm actually sharing with him things that I've filmed. So I feel like I could connect with him on this in this moment, and this gives me a bit of relief. My grandmother has seen the film now, I don't know, maybe 30 times. The first time that she saw it was really I was really anticipating this moment a lot. And I was very, very happy when she saw it because she loved it and felt really at ease. I was afraid that she wouldn't feel comfortable with what she was seeing of herself and her story. And she was actually very authentic to her self character in the film. She was laughing in the same moment and crying in the same moment and laughing and crying at the same time in the same moment. And then, since the film has been released in France 1 month ago, 5 weeks ago actually, it's still in theaters, so it's really amazing. It's doing well. She's been coming with me to the screenings. She's really enjoying it. She even came with me with on TV. We had an interview, so it's really amazing for her at 84 years old to be able to live that. And I think she's really conscious of the impact because she always says in the screenings that her memory will be kept alive, and that it's not only her memory but the memory of many. And so I'm really happy to be able to share this with her. She's actually coming to Paris tomorrow again for a screening that we have together. So I really want her to be able to, enjoy this time and see herself everywhere in screen. Her that has never really been able to tell her story. So I think it's a huge thing for her and for us and for all the women, the Algerian women that have gone through the same path, and for all the people that have lived through exile, and also for the Algerian immigrants in France, that are very present but very absent of the public space and the public discourse.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lina, and very well said. And I'm glad that your grandma is embracing her newfound movie stardom. Her debut as a movie star. That's awesome. Well, thank you for spending time with me. I do want to ask one last question, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. What Well, I guess it's kind of a two-part question. So if audiences were not able to see the Arab American National Museum, the film screen at the Arab American National Museum's Arab Film Festival, where can they go to watch the film? Or if they want to watch it again, as they should, where can they go to watch the film? And then what do you have coming up that we can expect to see from you in the near future?
So in the US, we've had our premiere in the Black Star Film Festival. For now, it's only been online screenings, but I hope there will be occasions to screen the film physically so I can accompany it. I don't know yet because we're looking for distribution in the US, so I don't know yet where it will be screened afterwards, but I'll be sharing on the Facebook page of the film. And it's going to be released also in Algeria, Morocco, and Tunisia in the coming month. It will be also broadcasted on Al Jazeera for the Arab world in 2022. And it's going to be screened again and again in festivals, but it has done a lot of festivals during 2021, and I hope that it will continue traveling. And now I'm working on a new documentary project that is about the
I think somehow we lost Dave there. I don't know what happened.
Wow, okay. Well, it was the end, so I don't know if maybe he will cut it before.
Let me see what happened. I'll text him. Maybe just a moment. Maybe if he hops back on, like, because it's a pre-recording, I can just cut it together. Let me see what happened. Maybe I can call him. Might be quicker.
Yeah, I felt that he was blocked, and then I saw him disappear.
Yeah. All right, Dave. Get my phone. Make sure he's okay. All right, bye. His computer literally crashed. It just.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He said he'll be up online in like a minute. I think he still wants to like kind of close it up and say,
Okay.
a formal goodbye. So if
No
you don't
problem.
mind waiting like a minute or
Yeah, no worries. I'm just gonna be on my phone because I have to answer a thing before.
No worries.
Don't be sorry. Good luck with your Zoom. Love you so much. I'll see you tomorrow.
Do you know when he's gonna connect? Because I have to leave in 5-10 minutes max.
Let me send him a text. Oops. I'm thinking if we can't come back soon enough, I'll have him text me the questions and I'll have you answer them alone on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she said 1 minute. Okay.
Okay. Good.
Back.
No, I just wanted to tell him there's a question that he asked me and I don't have the answer, so I'll
Okay,
tell
yeah.
him before we.
All right, welcome back.
I'm so sorry.
No,
My-
don't worry.
My work laptop crashed, I believe, 3 times.
Oh my
And
god.
then I went to go use my personal laptop, and now that's making a strange noise and took forever to work.
Oh my god.
I have no idea. If anybody would like to buy me a new laptop, I'm here for donations. So sorry, Lina. So sorry, Jacob.
No worries. I just wanted to tell you because when you asked where we could expect the film, did you mean in the US or worldwide?
Good question.
Because
If
in
the
the
wo-
US, I don't know yet. We haven't, like, we don't have so much. We didn't have so much answers, and we didn't find US distribution. So except this screening in San Francisco that I know about, which I wouldn't know exactly how to describe because I'm a bit lost between screenings. I think it's Arab. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say, I guess you could say like worldwide too, because I assume like
this
if
I
it's
can say, yeah.
Yeah, because if it's screening in Europe, people can find their way to those channels.
Yeah. Okay, so we can do it again.
Yes. Jacob, do you need me to repeat the question?
Yeah, go ahead and repeat the question, and then it'll make it a nice, cleaner cut.
So you don't want to capture the last 10 minutes of tech issues?
Yeah, we could just leave that in there.
Floating in space. Okay, I got you. So, Lina, to kind of wrap everything up, I wanted to ask you where folks can see the film, where they can find it if they missed it at the Arab American National Museum's Arab Film Fest screening, and then what can we expect to see from you? What projects are you working on?
Yes, so the film is currently available in France as it was released 5 weeks ago, and it's going to be screened in Algeria in December. There's going to be a tour. It's going to be screened in Morocco also in December. There's going to be a Tunisian release soon in 2022, and it's going to be broadcasted also in Al Jazeera by the end of next year in 2022 in the MENA region. So this is after the festival circuit, of course. And I hope there will be other screenings in Europe. I don't know yet everywhere. I know there's a screening in Cambridge soon at a festival. I know there is a screening in the 21st of November in San Francisco also. at the Roxy Theater, and we're still looking for, you know, distribution in the US and in some European countries, because in the Arab countries we've had a lot of opportunities to screen, so that's really great. And yeah, for now that's what we have now, but I hope it's going to be around for a while. And yeah, as of your second question, I'm currently working on a second documentary project that is based on my maternal family this time, on the story of my mother, who is a Palestinian actress, and the story of her relationship with her 7 sisters that live in Galilee. And it's about the transmission of memory through the story of Palestinian women and the collective and like the intimate stories in the collective story. And it's also based on archival footage and a shoot that I'm currently doing. So I don't want to talk too much about it because it's still like in its early phase, but yeah, it's a bit of a continuity of their Algeria, but in another side.
Beautiful. Well, for their Algeria, I'm the biggest cheerleader. So if there's anything, if any film festival programmers are watching this, I highly recommend you include it. If you haven't seen it, Lina, thank you for sharing where you can possibly go to watch it. It's amazing that it's getting, you know, being screened in all these different places. Yeah. This is amazing. Yeah. And then your upcoming project also sounds super exciting. So I hope you know that you and everything that you do has a home here at the Arab American National Museum. So thank you so much for making time. And hopefully we'll have you back again when your second, when your second doc is finished.
Yeah, this time not on Zoom, but in reality. Yeah. Inshallah.
Inshallah. Inshallah. I yearn for that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm very glad that the film found a place at the Arab American National Museum. And good luck.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lina. And thanks to you all for watching this Talkback with Lina Soualem, director of their Algeria. Please continue to follow Lina and their Algeria and everything that they're doing. And also please continue to feel free and connect with the Arab American National Museum. You can see everything that we're doing on our social media or by going to www.arabamericanmuseum.org. Thanks everybody and enjoy the rest of your day.